What's up, Schmucks? Thanks for joining us this week. We got Gooch.
Hello.
We got Sierra Monaco.
Hey, fuckhead.
And then we got the one and only Miguel Ribiera, although I'm not that important.
No, he's right.
That was actually a cry for help. And Gooch answered it wonderfully. We're here to discuss a movie, right? As we usually are. Sometimes we just come here and hang out on set because we don't really have much to do with our lives.
Yeah.
Unemployed.
But no, we're here to do 3 Billboards, right? Oscar nominated for Best Picture. I think Best Original Screenplay.
Yeah.
What else? It's up for that. I think it might also be up for Best Director. Not entirely sure.
Who decided to make, like, how many words is that? 3 billboards down from Ebbing, Missouri. It's
Honestly, I love it.
Even man. I was kind of.
all right, but like, can they even fit it on a poster? Like,
Yes.
the poster is the words.
Actually, I'm glad you
They
bring that up.
did.
The poster for this movie is really nice. I like it a
Yeah,
lot.
it's very pretty.
Yeah. So, well, the movie's pretty well shot. Talking about the poster, right? Poster, picture, cinematography. There's my thought chain right there. Movie's pretty well shot, you know? I wouldn't say it's gorgeous, right? But, you know, it's definitely more than respectable.
Especially for the environment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's simple,
nowhere
it's functional,
USA.
and it like you said, the environment's kind of bland. It's Ebbing, Missouri, you know, and it makes it interesting.
Definitely.
Ebbing, Missouri, I like, maybe it's an actual place, maybe it's based on a real story. I hope not. But
Yeah.
obviously, sometimes the curtains are just blue. Like, it's the edge of civilization. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of on the coastal zone, if you will, the ebbing tide. And I think that's interesting,
I think the curtains are just blue in this case.
if you say so.
Let's start off with how we often do, characters, right?
Yes.
I think this movie has extremely interesting and extremely dimensional characters, right? They got a lot going on. There's a lot to them. What do you guys think about any characters in particular? Which one stuck out to you the most?
Obviously, Mildred. Like, one of you said it earlier. Like, I think, Zach, you said it. Mildred is not a likable protagonist. And I think it's funny that you said that because I love her. Like, obviously, the people within the town, they're like, oh, she's, harassing our police. She needs to take down those billboards. We don't like her. She's a bitch. But I'm like, you go, girl. You stick it to the man there. Like, she's out here. She's doing her thing. Her daughter was raped and murdered down the road from her house. And
It's
I
not
think
the cops' fault.
it's not.
She's definitely taking it out on them.
It's not,
Also,
but I appreciate the energy that she's putting behind this. Like, she's taking this anger and she's like,
She's trying to find justice.
yeah, you know?
Yeah, that's fair, as any mother or parent would. But yeah, I'm kind of, I see the points of both of your sides. She's kind of a fucking bitch, but you gotta respect it because she's convicted.
Absolutely. And one of the things, I kind of want to amend what I said previously about, like, she's not a likable protagonist.
She's not the typical.
The whole movie, I don't think there's a single individual, aside from the rapist, obviously, where you don't like them at some level.
Or
but
at least empathize.
or empathize with them. But, like, the movie starts with, obviously, the cops, at least how it's presented at the beginning, the cops have not done their job with finding justice for this girl. And the mother is obviously...
This girl who was raped and murdered.
Who was raped and murdered.
And burned alive.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of fire in this movie.
Yeah, there
but,
is.
including the fire in Mildred's heart.
The curtains are blue. Bitch. The curtains are blue.
So like, I went into the movie preparing to hate the cops and to side with Mildred. But, she was a bitch. She did not make it easy to like
She was
her.
not being reasonable. And it's an unreasonable situation.
Yeah, exactly. You can't expect someone to be completely reasonable. But, there was a lot of gray in the whole movie. There wasn't really a black and white, like, you hate this person, you like this person. Even, and we'll talk about this later, but even Dixon,
Yeah. He's kind of set up to be the antagonist for a good portion of the movie.
I mean, your first introduction to him is he tortured a black man. Like, whether or not the semantics that are argued later, but...
It's a person of color. It was person of color torture.
My bad.
That's a quote from the movie.
Yeah.
And in context, it's very funny. Please don't crucify me on social media.
No, but yeah, so, like, he's introduced as this terrible person, like someone that another human being, like, he tortures him. But, by the end of the movie, you're like, you don't hate him. Maybe
Yeah.
you don't like him, but you don't hate him.
I would definitely agree with that. You touched on it a little bit. The movie does a lot to trip you up on expectations. It does a lot to subvert expectations. Like, in a typical movie, like you said, we would be 100% on Mildred's side. The cops would all be incompetent or
Corrupt even.
belligerent, corrupt.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you could argue that they were a little.
I
they
think
were
incompetent.
definitely incompetent. Some of them.
I mean, like Willoughby.
all but Willoughby.
Blatantly we have the interaction where he's like, "There's no evidence."
You can't prove
and
it in court.
he let him stay on. Like
About
Yeah.
the
I'm just
POC
throwing that out there.
No, definitely. So he let Dixon stay on after the allegations of him torturing, the guy. But you find out later that it was for relatively good intentions. You know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You know, nobody here is an evil person except the murder rapist. He's
who
evil.
really isn't even in the movie.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Oh, come. Actually, on that subject, go watch the movie. If you haven't watched it, definitely go watch it.
Yeah, I think not that this matters that much, but especially if you're a woman, you should watch it because I just think it's particularly relevant.
Yeah.
But everybody should watch it, and guys should watch it just to be able to empathize with women, So there's a lot of gray in the movie. In a typical movie setup, that's what would have happened. And it's presented like that for the first 10 minutes until it really delves into the characters. And this movie does a great job of really humanizing everybody on screen. Nobody's good, nobody's bad. They're just people, They have their faults, 100%. But I think
each character's complex.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know this movie's come under a lot of fire, especially because of its Oscar nominations. People are like, why are they nominating for an Oscar? It's just about a racist cop. And like Dixon, yeah, he's an awful guy for the most part. And I think the only time where I'm like, all right, Dixon, is when he's like doing his I'm a detective shit after he gets that letter and when he saves
Trial by
the
fire.
file.
Trial
Yeah. When he saves the file, which we'll touch on that whole scene and a few others in a little bit, but it's come under a lot of fire because of the attention that the movie paid to Dixon's character. And I see part of it like that. It became a movie less about Mildred and more about Dixon's situation and his position as a cop and growing up a racist in Ebbing, Missouri. And I do wish that it would have focused a little bit more on Mildred. The movie ended up taking a scope where it focused more on the town and how the whole situation affected the town. And I went into it expecting, and especially based on the beginning of the movie, was hoping for it to focus on Mildred's struggle because it was her daughter that was burned and raped.
No, I mean, I do see a lot of the reason for the criticism. Women probably feel like this was an opportunity for them to be represented, and that it missed out on it. And maybe it was, but I don't think it's a bad thing as far as the movie is concerned. I think the movie just wasn't about that. I think
It just had a different story to tell than
It was about the
expected.
town.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even think it was about the town. It was about three specific people.
Willoughby.
For the most part.
Willoughby, Dixon, and
And Mildred. Yeah, I think Mildred's story is really a vehicle through which the movie analyzes three very different people who've gone through very different things, gone through and are going through very different things in their lives, but to also see how they're similar because at our core we're all people. I don't want to get too preachy, but I think that's what the movie's really...
Again, you say that her struggle was used as a vehicle to show us all of their stories. Again, I think that's why people are upset, is that you see situations like this where women are just used to propel the development of other characters. The only difference that I would see in this is that we're also seeing Mildred's character develop, which I think if we hadn't, then I would have some more issues with the movie.
Yeah. I think that's a fair point, but I still just kind of maintain that point that it's just not about only her, and it's not about only the racist cop or only the good cop with cancer. I think it's just about people and the nature of people.
how each person deals with the problems that they're presented with.
Exactly.
And now that you bring it up, everyone in that town's going through a lot. Like, the police chief has cancer. Like, that's
Terminal
a hell
cancer,
of terminal.
yeah.
He knows he's dying. His family pretty much knows it. And in the end, he has to make a very difficult decision based on, whether he wants to drag it out or make it easier on his family. Mm-hmm. Relatively easier.
Yeah, going back, I think that's the heart of this movie is the characters. I mean, like we're talking about how hard that scene was. The movie does a great job at developing Willoughby's character in particular.
Which makes the end so painful.
Yeah, because you see, from Mildred's perspective, he's kind of incompetent, or the police in general are kind of incompetent. He's the figure of the police, so she kind of blames him. And again, from her perspective, that's understandable. From his perspective, it's kind of heavily implied the police did everything that they could, and there's just simply not much more to do except wait and hope.
Hope that the murderer and rapist trips up. Because in the end, a lot of these cold cases, that's the only way that they
Someone
get
fucks up.
5 years down the line, you hear him talking about it
in
at
a
a
bar.
bar.
Yeah, I think it's a interesting idea. I mean, and it's true. Definitely, if you look at a lot of serial killer cases in particular,
They trip up in the end.
They trip up, or they end up wanting to get caught. They just say, "Fuck it, I'm
Yeah.
bored."
Yeah, but talking about Willoughby, it makes me think compassion was a big theme that I noticed throughout the movie. In a way, it was subtle because you would go through moments of tension, anger, the scene where Mildred is being interrogated by Willoughby, and they're not happy with each other. They're clearly angry, and she's standing up, she's kind of in his face, and Willoughby coughs blood up on her, and her mood immediately switches.
The whole scene just flips on its
Yeah, she's like, "It's fine, baby." Like, she's like, "We're gonna get you help," and she immediately goes and gets help for him.
Yeah, all the anger and everything is lost. Immediately becomes a mother again. At least that's how she handles that situation.
Because outside of the problem that she's having to go through, they're all still people. She still has compassion for him. And some movies have this problem where, you've got this antagonist you can't relate to him. He's obviously the bad guy. And Willoughby is not that at all.
No, I would argue
Yeah,
Willoughby is a
Willoughby's-
lot more likable than
Than
the other
most-
two protagonists. in
I
the movie.
Yeah.
love Willoughby.
Willoughby is like a genuinely good person, and I really like the mechanism that they use to really kind of bring all the characters' development full circle with the letters that he gives
Oh, yeah.
to Dixon and Mildred. So after what happens to Willoughby happens,
Can we say it?
we don't need to say details.
Okay.
But so he leaves letters to Mildred and Dixon. And those letters are really heartfelt, and they pretty much summarize what we're saying and how Willoughby feels about them. Like, hey, you guys, you're going through a lot, and I don't blame you for what's happened between us. I can't, but I know you're good people. I want to see you, move beyond the struggles that you're going in right now. And it's a really powerful scene.
Willoughby paid to have the billboards up for another month longer, even though Mildred didn't necessarily have the money.
What was it?
The Mexican
the
delivery
Mexican
boy?
mafia. It's the Mexican mafia in that
Swear to God, I
Thomas.
thought it was the cartel. Because it's like, the lady says, yeah, this little Mexican boy brought me the money in an unlabeled envelope. That's the cartel.
In the middle of Missouri.
All right.
Smack dab in the middle of the U.S.
Some of the details don't quite add up. But all I'm saying is I think maybe Willoughby was a little bit more complicated in that he was smuggling some drugs through Ebbing, all right?
Oh, no.
And then also the scene with Welby and Dixon when they're in the hospital after Dixon is recovering from his burns and he beat the shit out of Welby.
Beats the shit out of Welby.
He throws him out of a window.
Welby is the person from who Mildred bought the billboards, or
Yes.
rented
He's
the billboards.
the ad guy in the town.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so everybody thinks that Willoughby shot himself because his name is being slandered on the billboards. But that's not the reason. It was to save his family the trouble.
So, and Dixon literally breaks down the door, goes upstairs, just beats him up, like near death.
He's pistol whipping the guy.
He
Yeah.
pistol whipped him, threw him out of a second. He broke the window first, which is kind.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't want to get that glass in his eyes. Broke the window, threw him out onto the street, and then went downstairs and beat him up some more after pimp slapping this one girl.
One good punch, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, one, he's a cop, so obviously he's held to a higher standard. But this is not something you do in a civilized society.
No, it's not.
He didn't use his words, use your words, Dixon. come
Use
on.
your words.
But he just, he
I
beat the
love the
shit out of
idea
him.
of Welby just, Dixon, use your words. Stop. Just speak to me.
Do you want to run a billboard to tell me how you feel?
Oh, man. But yeah, it is a brutal scene.
Yeah,
but,
it's rough. It's hard to watch.
And-
then-
Especially because Welby's a pretty likable character.
yeah.
And
He's
it
a good
gives
dude.
it gives Welby every motive to hate Dixon,
Mm-hmm.
because he almost died.
Yeah.
There's no
I really
question about
thought he was dead
did
when
thought
he
he
threw
died,
him
yeah.
out of the window. I was like, he just killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
No, and then they meet in the hospital, and when
After Dixon gets caught in a fire that Mildred sets to the police station because she thinks it's empty, and he's in there recovering the letter that Willoughby left him.
She's a straight up terrorist.
Yeah, she's a
she
domestic
she
terrorist.
firebombed that shit.
Yeah, it's wild. But yeah, and that's actually a real big point of character growth for Dixon.
Yeah.
When he puts his body in more danger than he arguably needed to be to get the file containing Mildred's daughter's case. out of the building and save it. And even like after he gets out of the fire, he like pushes it further away from him because he's on fire.
He doesn't try to put himself out. His first thought is, I have to get these papers away from the fire.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
yeah.
Peter Dinklage comes and saves the day.
Peter Dinklage, I wasn't ready for Peter Dinklage in
At
this
all.
movie at all.
He showed up.
shows up, I was like, what the f-?
But
I love him.
He was good. He wasn't unnecessary in this movie.
I think he kind of was, only because his character's kind of minor, and it's like getting Ian McKellen to come in and play like, I don't know, like somebody's senile old dad in the corner. It's like, why? Yeah, so obviously he gets very serious burns on all along his face and body, and so he ends up in the hospital where he ends up sharing a room with Welby, the guy he beat up.
When that scene happened and you see that Welby's also in that room, I was totally expecting he's dead. Like Welby's gonna get up and smother this man at best.
Yeah, and he's all wrapped up in bandages.
Yeah.
It's really powerful because it's like
he's powerless.
Yeah, and also like Welby doesn't know it's him, and so he's initially showing a lot of compassion for him. He's like, "Man, this sucks." I'm like, "I'm so sorry," because he's
obviously it's a terrible
it's
thing that
fine,
he's
man.
suffering.
Don't cry. You're gonna get better.
And Dixon's crying because
He's
really
Dixon.
killed this man, and he's like, "You want some orange juice?" And through some exchange of dialogue, he finds out that it is Dixon, and then
He Welby walks away, and you think,
From the camera shot, he leaves the angle, and you think like, oh, this is it. Like he's gonna kill him.
yeah,
or like
Or
he's
something.
just not gonna
Break his
talk to
legs.
him.
Yeah.
He's done. But then he comes back over and he offers him that glass of orange juice.
With a straw.
Yeah. He offered him a glass of orange juice with a straw.
yeah, with the straw because
bendy
Because he can't move his head.
he wasn't gonna drink that without a straw. Like full face bandages.
Full body, wasn't it? Like he had his arms up and everything.
Yeah.
Like,
Which seems a little excessive because afterwards we see the burns only on like.
well, because he's wearing clothing.
Yeah, he was wearing clothing, and also
I mean, not after the
those
fire.
are still
but
pretty serious burns on his face.
Yeah, true. You don't.
how long do you think it was in that hospital?
I don't know, a couple weeks.
How long does what is the time span of the movie?
I feel like it covers like 3 months.
About 3 months.
Yeah, that's what
3 months
it
with 3
feels like.
billboards?
Thinking about like the billboards and the payments.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, there was 2 payments. There was the first one that she did, and then the secondary one that the Mexican cartel paid for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's like
So it was
2
about
months.
2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if Willoughby was actually, he's actually like, what's
Pablo Escobar.
That's
Pablo
the
Escobar.
real reason he killed himself,
Yeah.
so that his wife
Oh.
wouldn't have to find out later about all of the shit that he was doing,
Or
all the cocaine.
maybe the cartel was coming for him.
It's
He's like,
true.
you know what? I'm dying anyways. Like,
They did say they hated the pigs. The note from the Mexican boy literally said, "Because you're not the only one in this town who hates the pigs."
really?
Yeah.
I missed that. That's interesting because obviously it came from Willoughby. Like we know that now. So maybe he recognized that the police in that town sucked. Like
kind of sorry. Willoughby was good.
Willoughby was good. Every other cop in there was. I mean, I guess there was only really 2 that were showcased, but blatantly incompetent.
I love the like
of them wasn't
secretary
incompetent.
guy who, when Mildred comes in and she yells at Dixon for arresting Denise, her friend, and she says, "Hey, fuckhead," and the guy's like, "Dixon, do not let her call you a fuckhead in your office."
He's
like, what?
He's like, what?
What?
Like you say something? Like
And then she says some other arbitrary insult that's
way less. And he's like,
than
hey,
fucking-
you can't talk to me like that.
And the guy's like, "Good on you."
I love Sam Rockwell in this movie. He's a very believable dumb guy.
Oh yeah, you talked about this earlier, Dixon and his music. He's
constantly wearing headphones.
Yeah, like I just
As the
appreciate
fucking
ABBA.
station burns behind him and he's just not noticing because he's vibing while
Well,
reading the
no,
letter.
he's like reading the letter, like
yeah.
super in his feelings.
That song played when they found out that Willoughby died.
Also, that scene was
Yeah.
because he was just vibing and everyone else is
Oh,
just.
I know. Oh, you see the guy throw
Oh,
the
that was
chair.
actually really funny though. Yeah. Like, cause you see just the way it's shot, you see Dixon just vibing at his desk, and then all the other officers, they just found out Dixon has no idea. They come in, storm into the police station. They're all upset. Like one of them throws a chair, and then he's like, "What's wrong, guys? What's going on?"
guys,
Hard cut to
fine.
to Dixon crying.
Sobbing in the bathroom.
Yeah, just sobbing. He's like, "All right, are you gonna faint again? Like, can you stand by yourself?"
Oh man.
Because you see, like, Willoughby was very clearly one of the only people in the town that believed in him being a good person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, that's another thing. Willoughby could have really resented Mildred
yeah.
for all the shit that she was pulling, especially with his name on that billboard. Like that's what is slander. I forget the legalistic.
It would be. I think it would be called slander, but it wasn't that bad. It was just.
But she was
was
directly
asking a
linking him
question.
to the fact that the killer wasn't caught. And by all accounts, he could have hated her. But like one of the first scenes that we see him in where he goes to Mildred's house, he's human. He's not defensive about it.
Mm-hmm.
He's more like obviously this thing sucks, but we need to talk about it.
So one thing I want to talk about, speaking of growth and whatnot, I really like the kind of culmination of specifically Dixon, I guess the culmination of the story, because they are the story, Dixon, Willoughby, and Mildred, where in Willoughby's letter, he says, Dixon, I know you want to be a detective. I believe in you that you can achieve that, but you have to let go of all the anger and hate in your heart, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's how you be a detective, right? And he gives him a little pep talk in the letter. And then later, he's at a bar after the...
Also, the reason he was at the police station was because he got fired.
Yeah.
So fast forward to the bar scene, he's no longer a cop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he's drunk. He looks up. There's this black couple at the bar. So he sees that love, and he feels shame for it. So he hangs his head. And so when this character who's heavily implied to be the rapist earlier in the movie comes into the bar talking with his friend, he doesn't see Dixon's there
because his head is down
so low. And so he sits right behind Dixon, and they start, talking. The implied rapist and his friend, they start talking, and Dixon gets the information, and so he's like, this is probably the guy. So he gets up to him, he like scratches his face, a fight breaks out, blah, blah. And then later you see that he scratched his face to get his DNA.
Under
and he
the
got his
fingernails.
Exactly. They set it up as this great, this great resolution, like, oh, everything's coming together, because Willoughby early in the movie, he's like, yeah, I mean,
foreshadowed this.
yeah, he's like, you sometimes just gotta wait till some dickhead fucks up at a bar and like starts talking about it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this is the culmination of that. This is,
The
so, oh, this is the perfect resolution to this plot. And then later you find out it wasn't the guy, and it's like, it was
a rapist.
He's still a rapist, but he's not Mildred's daughter's rapist. And so I think it was just a great way of making you feel the disappointment that those characters feel.
And it's a very real movie. Like it's not some, there's not a clear antagonist, there's not a clear protagonist, and there's not a resolution really to the story. There is, but there's not the traditional like, oh, the guy gets caught. And everyone lives happily ever after, sans Mildred's daughter. But it's a very real movie.
Yeah, because going back, it's about the characters. It's not about the plot. It's not about like, oh, this big, like, we gotta catch the guy. It's like how these characters are resolving the reality that they live in.
Yeah, how they're coping.
And at the end, that's the question that's left at the end of the movie is like, what's their next move? Dixon and Mildred finally come together, and they're like, what's the next move? What do we do now? How do we move forward?
And Mildred acknowledges too at that point that what he's done, the effort that he has put in, and she recognizes it and thanks him for that. And like, we see his growth, and then we also see Mildred's growth with that as well, because she's letting go of some of the anger at that point. She's like, you tried. You really tried. I appreciate that.
Because that was her anger at the beginning, was she felt that they didn't do enough.
Yes.
And now she's there with him. Like, he's working alongside her to try and catch this guy.
After he gets the shit kicked out of him.
Oh, so the billboards themselves, right? It's implied, or either blatantly said or implied at the very beginning that Mildred's daughter died around where these billboards are. And then the scene where Willoughby comes and talks to Mildred at her house, you see that the billboards are literally within view of the house. So obviously there's a flashback where Mildred is speaking to her daughter. It's a normalized conversation, and then they start arguing, and it ends with basically she says, I hope you get raped, basically.
Because the daughter said it first.
The daughter's like, I hope I
Yeah.
get raped to prove a point, like instead of letting me use the car or whatever. And Mildred said, I hope so too. And then she does, within view of the house. And obviously this is weighing very heavily on Mildred the entire movie. But the billboards themselves, at one point you see Mildred tending flowers at them. And you never really see a grave site. But these billboards, for me at least, like how I viewed them as kind of a surrogate gravestone.
Yeah.
Like, this is the monument that remembers Mildred's daughter's death.
Or if anything, it's the monument that remembers the tragedy, and instead of a gravestone which might represent closure for Mildred, this is the end of the situation.
It's the tragedy that
unfortunately.
matters more.
Yeah, it's a tragedy, and I think it might represent her refusal to let go, and her refusal to not move on, and instead continue pursuing the killer in a sort of irrational way. But obviously, again, like we've stated many times, it's an irrational situation. There's no way to be rational in it.
Building off of her irrational reaction when those billboards catch fire.
Oh my God.
She's putting herself not only in danger, she could have died with when she was trying to put out these billboards. She climbed up on top of this flaming structure and tried to put it out.
That scene where she's standing on top of the billboard on fire, and her son comes back and he's like, Mom,
what are you doing?
What are you doing? And she's standing up there like she has to save it. That kind of broke my heart. I was like,
It's a
oh,
desperate,
man.
like, it's desperation on her side, which means that those billboards have to be more than just what they appear to be. In her mind, at least.
Yeah, it makes me think about that you've seen in the past few years with like police brutality and things like that, and people get upset that like you see these videos and the pictures of the things that are happening, But I think it's important that you do see that because it keeps, not only it keeps the event in the forefront of your mind, but it propels,
Action.
yes, it propels action
Resolve it.
to resolve it. And that's exactly what these billboards are doing. She literally puts like raped while dying or something like
Which is,
that.
it's a very in your face. Like,
Yeah. Like,
It's a red billboard in big black text. Yeah.
there's no way to ignore it, which
she's
sometimes
displaying
that's
her
what
grief
you
for everyone
need.
to see. Like one of the things that we've talked about before is that it humanizes everyone in this movie. Like regardless of the actions, the perceived or blatant actions that occur, everyone in there is human. They're very complex. They've got their own reasons for doing things. And that's one of the things maybe that you can look at with the past things that have happened that are atrocious, some of the events of police brutality. But in the end, the victim's human, the police are human. Everyone's complex, everyone's got issues, and obviously you don't see everything that goes on. And that's one of the things that this movie does. You could pull very shallow things from this movie. You know, you've got incompetent police, you've got a racist cop, you've got someone that was brutally murdered and there's no closure to it. But the movie really dives in and shows that, you know, not everything that you see at first is what it seems. You can't just react to everything you see.
You gotta, patiently view something and try to see what's trying to be communicated to you, because film is a medium through which you communicate.
Right.
Yeah.
And this movie has some very interesting ideas to communicate. Yeah. Also, the tone of the movie is pretty interesting because it's very dark, as the subject matter would, stand
Not
to
a
reason.
happy.
Yeah. But it's also oddly funny in a lot of moments. It gives me like a weird kind of Fargo vibe, like it's a Coen Brothers movie. And funny enough, Frances McDormand, the lead actress in this, also was the lead actress in Fargo.
It's funny that you mentioned Fargo, a Coen Brothers movie. I haven't seen Fargo, but I've seen other works by the Coen Brothers, and I saw, obviously, she's also in Burn After Reading, but like the vibe of the towns that we see in both movies, there's just something so painfully, for lack of a better term, like they're just so painfully small towns, where you get that
Burn
vibe.
After Reading's like in the middle of like Langley, Virginia.
Yeah, but the whole thing, it just the tone of it, where it
Yeah, with small towns, obviously, maybe not everyone knows each other, but everyone's aware of each other. So obviously, a tragedy of this nature would hit the entire town very hard.
the actions of the characters as well.
Exactly.
Speak to that small town mentality.
Like in a city, like let's say you're walking around New York, there's no way that the actions of one person, more or less, in a normal situation, would affect the entire city. Whereas in this town, someone hits a stop sign, and the entire town knows about it.
Unless that one person is Rocky Balboa in Philadelphia.
Yes.
All right, so quick thoughts, tweets, let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up. All right. Nice, pretty pink bow. It's a depressing movie. But, like we said earlier, it doesn't weigh on you the entire movie. There's definitely moments of levity because it's a realistic movie. In real life, you're not going to have just constant. I mean, there's going to be funny moments. There's going to be funny moments. There's going to be sad moments. You're going to be pissed off. You're going to be caring, like the moments with Mildred and Willoughby. It just dives into the complexity of human life. Mm-hmm. There's never black or white. Life is just gray.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
So
I think, especially in the time, I hate to say this, the times we're living in right now. Sorry, it just sounds so cliche, but it has a lot of value for the things that we're seeing happening around us right now. And I feel like because of that, you should watch this movie. The one thing that when I finished this movie, the one word review that I was giving to people that I felt I should watch, I was like, it's fascinating. Mm-hmm. Just seeing the way the characters interact and thinking about how it relates, like I said, to what's happening around you, it has value.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I also said, it's fascinating. It's just interesting to watch. I probably wouldn't watch it again because Gooch said it doesn't weigh on you, but kind of weighed on me a little bit. And I don't necessarily think it's best picture material. It wasn't like amazing.
But it was good.
It was very good.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it was very good and explored a lot of interesting ideas, and I think it's definitely worth a watch.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, there you have it. Thanks for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to entertain y'all. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did, and if you did, smash that like button, leave a comment below, maybe suggest our next movie, and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Cinema Schmucks.
And you can find us on Facebook.
You can also find us on Facebook, also, funny enough, at Cinema Schmucks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would you look at that?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's wild. All right, guys. So thanks for tuning in again, and catch you next week.
Yeah, get schmucked with us next week.
I hate you. I hate you so much.
Oh my god.